My name is Athena, and in this video I'm bringing you part 6 of my September wrap-up. Wow, part 6. This is going to be the last part. Just to let you know in advance, we have a couple books to discuss. I have a couple books I want to talk about. So yeah, I read a lot in September. The first book I finished after part 5 of this video series, so to speak, is Things No One Will Tell Fat Girls by Jes Baker. This was recommended to me along with another book by the author, which I'm going to discuss later in this video, by Charlotte from Books and Bargains. So Charlotte, thank you very much for your recommendation. I really like both of those books, but I will discuss this one first. This one was published earlier, so I started with this one. And this is kind of part memoir and part information book about and for fat people, fat phobia and diet culture, and I found it really nice to relate to. Now I am fat. I don't normally show like my whole body on camera because we're discussing books, so I usually just have like my face and part of my top half. But I really like reading books with fat characters or memoirs written by fat people to get some feel some similarities in that, and how like I can't go into most shops and buy clothes because most of them are too small for me. That's just an example, but anyway, it's just nice because I'm gonna be honest, most of the people that I see in real life are part of diet culture and buying into that, if that makes sense. So as one of the few fat people in like the people who I see in real life, sometimes I struggle with that because I feel a little bit on my own in that, if that makes sense. Like I feel okay with who I am, but like not everyone is, but my size, if that makes sense. Like anyway, we don't need to get into a whole, because I could do a whole video about various things. I really like this, and it also gave me some new websites that I hadn't heard of, and resources and articles and books and new people to follow on social media as well. So you understand, based on the list of books that's mentioned in this book, I looked them up and see which ones seemed interesting to me, and I bought some. I haven't received them yet, but yeah. One more thing about Things No One Will Tell Fat Girls. This book also had a number of guest essays by other fat people, and I like that the author, who is white, so some of the guest essays were by people of color, by disabled people, by queer people, so let's say people of other marginalized groups. Aside from their size, they were also part of a marginalized group in another way, if that makes sense. So I thought those guest essays were also quite nice. So Jes Baker has a blog, The Militant Baker. She's had that for a while. This book was published in, I think, 2015. Now I'm not the best person to tell you about like diet culture and all of that, because like this book or other books can do that much better than I can. I mean, if I can't manage to do it with some of my family members, then who am I to convince the general internet, right? So, but yeah, I really like this. The next book that I finished is Artemis and the Tijdparadox by Eoin Colfer. In English, this is Artemis and the Time Paradox. Artemis Fowl and the Time Paradox, sorry. This is book 6 in the Artemis Fowl series, and I buddy read this book with Olivia from Olivia's Catastrophe. Link to her channel in the description down below. I have been buddy reading this series with Olivia this year, and this month we read book 6, and I really like this one. It has some time travel elements, as the name suggests, and I thought it was quite cleverly done. There was also a connection with an earlier book, let me put it that way without spoiling too much, and I thought that was really nice. So this, in my opinion, was definitely one of the better ones in this series, and yeah, I really liked it. And I think one of the reasons that I managed to read a lot in October is as well, aside from all the graphic novels and manga, is that I was doing these 3 buddy reads. If you see this video and the previous one, I believe, it's all in there. Alongside then if I still felt like reading, but I had already read my pages of the buddy reads for the day, I read something else, and yeah. Anyway, moving on to the next book, that is Landwhale by Jes Baker. Now this is her memoir. I think it felt more like a memoir than the first book. This one is more recent, from 2018, and I enjoyed this one as well. Not as much, I think, as the first book, which is Things No One Will Tell Fat Girls. But I still like this one a lot. There is a little bit of overlap, because this goes into more the author's like childhood and stuff, but obviously some of those things were already in the previous book. There is mental health representation as well, aside from fat representation. Obviously this book comes with trigger warnings, which I believe the author has put like a chapter on that here. So, you know, I really like that you know that what's going to be in the book, and if that triggers you in some way, to, you know, not read it if, you know, if you think it's not the right time for you, if that makes sense. So yeah, I like this. It was quite interesting. The next book I read was Finna by Nino, Cipri. Anyways, this is a novella. It is kind of science fiction. It's a bit of a parody of like an IKEA store. It's basically like what would happen if there was portals to alternate worlds in an IKEA store. So we have our main character called Eva. She works at this IKEA-like store, and she doesn't really like her work. She has recently broken up with her partner, whose name is Jules. They are non-binary, Jules is. So the two of them recently broke up, and then a customer disappears through a portal to an alternate dimension or an alternate world, and Ava and Jules have to go and find the customer and retrieve them, if that makes sense. So this has also some queer elements. Now I really like alternate universes. That's like something, just like time travel, alternate universes is something that I really like to read about, or also see like movies and TV shows about. Time travel and alternate universe, that those two things are, I think, quite interesting elements to me. And yeah, this was a nice read. It's a novella, so you know it's not that long, but yeah, I liked it. Yeah. And after reading Finna, I felt in the mood to read Horrorstör. I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce that, but this O is meant to be pronounced differently than these two because of the umlaut, we call it in Dutch. I'm not sure what the English word is. This is by Grady Hendrix, and this is also sort of a parody on an IKEA store, but then horror. So that's, after reading Finna, I thought, let's read this one next, if that makes sense. So the book is kind of made to look like an IKEA catalogue. Well, you can't see it all as well. The store here is called Orsk. It takes place in the United States, is obviously inspired by IKEA. And well, there's also pages of text. So this is a horror novel. I don't read a whole lot of horror because it's not like my favorite genre. I did really like horror as a kid, so I was a big fan of R.L. Stein's Goosebumps and Fear Street, Point Horror, and also of Dutch horror authors for children. But I don't read as much horror for adults. I do like Stephen King. But other than Stephen King, I don't read a whole lot of horror for adults. Not that I read Stephen King books a lot, but anyway. Okay, back to Horrorstör? Yeah. Anyway, so this book is about Amy, and Amy works at an Orsk store, but something strange is going on there. So every morning when the employees arrive, it looks like something strange happened at night. So Amy and 2 of her co-workers have to stay the night in the store and try to figure out what happens. Who's breaking into the store and like vandalizing stuff and such, if that makes sense. And this was quite good. Again, it was quite creepy. Yeah, and like, so both Finna and Horrorstör were like had nice kind of parody, funny stuff in it, if that makes sense. And yeah, this was a nice read as well. It was enjoyable. The next book I finished was Save the Date by Morgan Matson. Now, I have read Morgan Matson's first 4 books years ago. This one was published in, I think, 2018? Yes. But by then, I wasn't as much into this author anymore, and I'd heard mixed things about this book as opposed to her other books, which I all really liked. So it took me a while to pick this book up. And the reason I did that now was because my brother got married, and so this was one of the books I brought with me to read. And I read like the first 40 or 50 pages of it, but I was so tired that this was the morning after in the hotel. I was so tired I couldn't concentrate. I woke up early, but yeah. So I stopped reading this book because it just didn't interest me at the time. Then I picked up Finna and I read like 40 pages of that, put it down again, and I was like, I can't concentrate on reading. I'm too tired. Let's just put the books down and just like lay here and wait till it's breakfast time. Basically. So anyway, so after I finished Finna and then read Horrorstör, I then thought I would try to pick up Save the Date again and see if I get any more into it or not. And I did. So that was good. I think it helped as well that my brother's wedding was a little bit further in my mind then, rather than the morning after when I could just think about my brother's wedding rather than what happens in this book. I shall tell you now what it's about. This book is about Charlie Grant and her big sister is getting married. The book takes mostly place over like those 3 days. A lot of the things that can go wrong with this wedding go wrong. There's a strong family theme in here which I enjoyed. So we have Charlie and then her sister and all the other siblings and family members. So it was an enjoyable read in the end, but I did think, like some of the other people who've read this book have also said, the things that went wrong with this wedding were sometimes a bit over the top and too much, if that makes sense. So that was kind of my main issue. Some things were a little bit predictable, but you know, in a book like this, which has also a bit of a romance theme in it, like I don't mind that per se necessarily. So that, and most of the book does take place over these 3 days. There are flashbacks, but the 3 days are not like evenly divided over the book, if that makes sense. So like I read a whole lot of the book and then we got to the next day, if that makes sense. So it wasn't, yeah. You read more of some days than of others, but yeah. Anyway, gladly I was able to enjoy this book a lot more once I waited a few days and felt a bit less tired, had recovered more. And then I enjoyed it, not as much as the author's first 4 books that I read. I seem to be kind of tripping over my words. But I enjoyed it, so like, yeah, so it was a bit over the top with some of the things that went wrong, but yeah, it was still enjoyable. I really like the family theme in here and that, because I think you learned this fairly early on, but the family house is going to be sold, I should say. And so Charlie Grant, the youngest of the children, she is 17, and so most of her siblings, like all of her siblings, have already like left the house and they're at like universities and stuff. And she, during this time period that the book takes place in, is all thinking about where she wants to go next and what she wants to do. So she is still quite attached to the family home. And one of the things I also really liked was that the mother, so here we have the list of characters, so the mother, she writes a comic, and the comic is based on the family. It's called Grand Central Station, and so a couple times in the book there is like a page of the comic, and I like that because I haven't read a whole lot of books about that. I have read quite a few books in which like the main character or like the side character or love interest, like somebody, like a teenager, let's put it that way, somebody young wanted to be a comic book artist or like draw stuff, but it doesn't happen often that like it's an older, in this case the mother, an older person that's been drawing this comic for a long time, and so I like that. Yeah. So pros and cons with this one, but it was an enjoyable read still, even if it wasn't my favorite. And then we get to the end finally. I feel like this part 6 was actually a bit longer than I thought it was going to be. So apologies for not like estimating beforehand how long I was going to talk about each book. This was the last part of my September wrap up. I hope you enjoyed watching these videos. If you have, please feel free to leave a comment down below if you've read any of these or want to read any of them or heard of them, or well, yeah. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye!